Leadership in the Era of Economic Uncertainty was written by Ram Charan.
It's not just your business or industry that's in a downturn. The entire global economic system has been wounded. There are leaders who already have begun reshaping their businesses to carry on through whatever hard times lie ahead. They're making changes now to emerge in better shape than ever, ready for the growth that ultimately will come. The immediate challenge is to act quickly and decisively to prepare for the worst possible scenario. If you conscientiously prepare for the worst, chances are that you'll encounter something less and come out ahead when it's all over. Your focus must shift from the income statement to the balance sheet. Protecting cash flow is the most important challenge almost all companies face today, whether they realize it or not. Cash has three internal sources: earnings from operations, working capital in the form of inventories and receivables, and the sale of assets. All three must be pursued vigorously. Because lack of liquidity will be an ever-present lethal threat, you'll have to manage conservatively, lowering your cash break-even point as rapidly as possible for the worst-case scenario. Protecting against a sudden liquidity crunch can mean thinking the previously unthinkable, such as deliberately giving up increases in revenue and market share. The new reality is that, barring acquisitions, your company will be smaller 2 years from now than it is today. Your cash break-even point will tell you that you have to reduce your workforce and capacity. Bitter and painful as it is, you'll have to face that reality because survival depends on cutting costs and raising cash. Using the necessity for cost reduction and liquidity to reshape and refocus the business puts you on the offensive. It turns a bad situation into an opportunity to build a company that will emerge from the storm stronger, better, more flexible, and better positioned than the competition. Succeeding in a volatile environment demands management intensity, a deep immersion in the operational details of the business and the outside world, combined with hands-on involvement and follow-through. Your new guiding principle must be this: hands-on, head in. You need information that is detailed, up-to-date, and unfiltered, obtained quickly and at the source. This is called ground-level intelligence. The need for ground-level intelligence extends to your suppliers and partners. Internally, detailed information on activities that directly affect the company's financial health and liquidity has to be monitored every day. All this information needs to be shared, pooled, and then pored over in an effort to extract key facts and patterns that are beginning to emerge. When you see trends emerging, you can act on them immediately. Most important, you need to see the big picture that's emerging. Most companies have operated with annual targets and have measured progress toward those targets on a quarterly basis. In the current environment, that's too long to wait to see whether a company is on track. You have to increase your frequency of control, setting targets on a quarterly, monthly, or even weekly basis. Volatility shortens the lifespan of a business model and strategy. Yours may become obsolete sooner than you think. Flexibility may well be your strategy, and conservation of cash may be your goal until the clouds clear up. This will be a time with many tough decisions, including choosing which people will stay, the real change agents, and which will go. Whose budgets will be cut, by how much, and which plants will be shut down, and which will survive. You must use your ground intelligence and have the guts to act. You must become a much more hands-on executive. You'll need an unprecedented grasp of reality not only on the global level, but also at the ground level. Become more operational. Of course, you cannot do everything and make every decision in this tumultuous period, but you must interact with subordinates much more frequently so that there are no slip-ups in execution. The increased management intensity will require more time in the office and less time spent outside the company. In every business, there's a central set of invaluable assets, including certain customers. You need to identify the constituents and things that are at the core of your company and protect them from loss or damage during the crisis. Look for ways to sharpen or strengthen the core and drop the rest. Now more than ever, your top people are crucial to the success of the company. Your job is to evaluate your top people with a new lens and under a different light. You cannot afford to keep those who are indecisive, those who tend to be loners, and those who are frozen in analysis paralysis. You have two major responsibilities that must be met through communication: information flow and motivation. You need information, unfiltered and in real time, to govern the company in rapidly changing and stressful conditions. The most important sources of information will be sales and marketing and your supply chain leaders. Pulling people together in tough times is in itself energizing, as long as you keep the discussion upbeat and focused on how to solve problems. Motivating the entire organization is a different kind of communications challenge. You need to align everyone with the company's goal of preparing for the worst and looking toward long-term success. You can inspire them by doing something as simple as being visible to the troops. You need to be listening to your people at every level to discover what's on their minds, what they're worried about, and what new ideas they have for doing something better. It's critical that you have a firm picture of the company's financial position on a real-time basis. Cash flow should be tracked daily. Inventory, margins, and receivables should be updated weekly, with their interrelationship with one another analyzed to reveal evolving patterns of change. Another important step is managing for cash. This is different from managing for accounting profits or revenues. It means that you almost certainly will be required to give up some customers or products. Be careful, though, when you think about ways to conserve cash. The shift in the economic environment will be most painful for sales and marketing executives, not least because a global slowdown erodes their normally optimistic outlook and changes their entire game plan. Here is what you as a leader in sales and marketing will have to do to help the company survive and thrive. The first thing to do is to evaluate the sales and marketing organizational structure thoroughly, along with the purpose, objectives, and key performance indicators that structure serves. In many cases, all three will change. The goal is not just to reduce costs, but, more important, to get the salespeople focused on what they need to do for the customer and against the competition. Salespeople must become the company's eyes and ears, providing timely ground-level intelligence that forms the basis for fundamental decisions about the company's strategy and tactics. You have to turn your people into skilled intelligence agents who provide timely information that forms the basis for fundamental business decisions. Sales goals should be set month by month, perhaps in a quarterly package that can be reset depending on the conditions and the way your company evolves as it manages for cash and reduces its customer base and product lines. Develop the right targets and put in place execution practices that will enable your people to meet or exceed those targets. It's also important to link sales to your research and development department. Assign some of your most aggressive and business-savvy salespeople to a business development role. Creative, cost-effective solutions to customers' problems often emerge from discussions among people with different knowledge bases. In this toxic environment, the CFO will be called on to step up as a leader of the organization and become, like the CEO, much more operational, while at the same time paying close attention to Wall Street. The CFO will have to devote some time to managing cash sources and ensuring that your company remains well within the bounds of its debt covenants and retains its debt rating. Here are the things the CFO needs to do. First, the CFO needs to exude the honest conviction that the company will come through the storm successfully. Second, he or she needs to present facts and details of the company's financial health under different scenarios of future demand and market conditions in a format people can comprehend. Third, the CFO must be constructive and very specific in demonstrating how resources have to be redeployed. And fourth, just as the CFO will be interacting much more closely with leaders of other functions, he or she needs to train people to do the same thing at lower levels of the company. They should make use of not only their analytical skills, but also their leadership abilities in getting faster decisions. The most important metrics concern cash flow, cash generation, cash collection, cash usage, the availability and timing of credit lines, and the timing of new financing and the repayment of debt. The company's intense focus on cash, where it comes from and where it goes, necessarily requires the CFO's involvement in pricing policy and mechanisms. In some cases, the CFO may also be your company's CRO, Chief Risk Officer. It's his or her responsibility to understand and monitor the myriad risks confronting the company at all times. It's imperative that the CFO offer the CEO his or her full and candid counsel on anything that involves the company's finances. With the CFO's command of the numbers and grasp of the value chain, he or she will become, almost by default, the advisor of last resort for the CEO and ultimately the board. One of the most daunting tasks facing you is to find a way to redo the budget frequently, perhaps as often as monthly, so that it reflects reality and enables you and your colleagues to move a portion of your resources to fund the emerging configuration. Budgeting is all about allocating resources, and those resources will be allocated differently in a severe contraction from the way they are in normal times. Capital expenditures will have to come under laser-sharp scrutiny. It's no longer sufficient to simply measure returns on investment. Projects that have an earlier cash return, even though the ROI is lower than that of some other projects, will get higher priority. Most management people understand the basics of profit or loss. Far fewer understand key items of the balance sheet, such as accounts receivable and inventories. Even fewer are familiar with capital expenditures and returns on those expenditures. This is a time when the CFO and the finance staff need to educate managers in the intricacies of the balance sheet by using the company's real numbers and showing what can happen in the future under different scenarios. If you head operations in a manufacturing company, your number one task is to lower your cash break-even point ahead of falling revenues. Decide now how you'll cut capacity and be prepared to act fast. As you make changes, let others help you consider the impact of those changes on the entire system. Be merciless in weeding out product lines and their myriad versions and extensions that create unnecessary complexity. You need fewer and better products, and you need to have the best product people possible thinking about making things better, faster, and more efficiently. Simplifying your operations should include a review to determine what might be outsourced. You can focus your mind on this if you consider what differentiates you from your competitors. Those things are valuable and should be kept in-house. Inventories are a huge cash trap. Now you'll have to be more cognizant of the financial implications of inventories of both raw materials and finished products. The job of managing your manufacturing and sourcing footprint, supplies, inventories, and shipments has become increasingly critical and more important than ever. Supply chain management has a tremendous impact on cash flow and customer service, and under stressful conditions, flawless execution in this arena can give you a major competitive advantage. There's much you can do right away to tighten the links between suppliers, your own company's operations, and your customers to allow you all to react faster to changes in the external environment. One of your main goals is to minimize the cash used in inventories, both incoming and outgoing. You can best accomplish that through cross-functional communication to synchronize the purchase of raw materials, their delivery to where they're needed, and their shipment to customers. You need to make your suppliers more than just suppliers. They need to become collaborators in what is actually a partnership. In a partnership, information flows both ways, and the game becomes win-win. You need the same supplier-customer partnership with your customers. Establish a tight linkage using the same metrics between your customers' needs and what you need from your supplier. You won't be able to establish a partnership with every supplier or customer, and so it's important to determine which ones will be sustainable partners. Re-examine existing partnerships to determine whether they're the most effective and efficient under the new conditions, and whether the number of suppliers should be reduced. How should the supply chain change to make the company stronger when the downturn ends? You need a handle on which customers and suppliers will survive and where. The more people appreciate the importance of their roles in getting your company through the storm and emerging stronger on the other side, the better they'll do their jobs. Among the many important behaviors and traits that characterize a good leader, the 6 most essential for managing in this downturn of downturns are honesty and credibility. This is no simple challenge. Nobody can be certain about the business environment and its direction. How can you tell people what you believe when you can't be confident that it's right? You can't fake it or bluff. Anybody can test your ideas by Googling.